Greetings, podcast listeners. In this episode, we'll be looking at Mussolini's diplomacy from 1923 to 1934. The following podcast is based on the Cambridge A-Level History curriculum. Let's begin by answering this question. What were the main features of Mussolini's foreign policy from 1923 to 1934? One was territorial expansion, another was national defence, and the third feature was negotiations and agreements with other European countries. In 1923, Italy invaded Corfu in order to fulfill its policy of territorial expansion, but in the end they were forced to withdraw and instead had to accept an indemnity from Greece due to pressure from the League of Nations and Conference of Ambassadors for Italy to solve the crisis. In 1924, Italy signed the Treaty of Rome with Yugoslavia, taking control of Fiume, as the Roman Empire had done in the past. Thus, this fits with the element of territorial expansion. In 1925, Italy signed the Locarno Treaties, which aimed at creating greater stability in Europe as the signatories respected each other's joint frontiers. In 1926, Italy set up a puppet regime in their protectorate of Albania, expanding Italian influence across the Adriatic Sea. In 1928, Italy signed the Kellogg-Briand Pact, which had the main aim of outlawing war and prohibited the use of weapons and arms, unless being used as a means of self-defense against attacks, or if it suited the League Covenant and other peace treaties of the League. Therefore, this aligned with the feature of forming international agreements. In 1932, Italy joined the World Disarmament Conference, and again, this was an international agreement. In 1933, Italy proposed the Four-Power Pact with Britain, France, and Germany, but in the end it was not ratified by French Parliament. Its aim was to ensure international security. In 1934, Italy defended its national security when it warned Hitler not to attempt to invade Austria, as they were afraid of Italian border security. The second question will be, how ambitious was Mussolini during the period of 1923 to 1934? Arguably, Mussolini adopted a more conciliatory diplomacy from 1923 to 1934 because Italy was in no position to adapt an aggressive foreign policy as their military power was insufficient. This was caused by their vast losses in the First World War, in which 650,000 soldiers were killed and 947,000 were wounded. Thus, Italy had a shortage of trained and well-equipped soldiers, as well as armaments, so Mussolini was unable to pursue an aggressive foreign policy. He did not immediately begin to pursue his aims, such as expansion. If he was pursuing an aggressive foreign policy, he would have attempted to take back much more of the former Roman Empire, but Italy was simply in no position to organize offensive attacks against the combined power of the League of Nations or declare a war against another European country. Thus, Mussolini adopted a much more conciliatory approach to diplomacy than he might have wished to. So, when looking at Mussolini's diplomacy from 1923 to 1934, did he achieve his aims? Firstly, did he receive the lands promised under the 1915 Treaty of London? Under the Treaty of London, Italy was promised colonies. However, in the Treaty of Saint-Germain, they were not given any. Italy was also promised Dalmatia, but it was not until 1941, when Mussolini invaded Yugoslavia, that he was able to rule Dalmatia. Though they made claims to Fiume in 1915, it was not granted to them. However, they were able to obtain Fiume through the Treaty of Rome with Yugoslavia in 1924. Therefore, during the period of 1923 to 1934, he only achieved this aim to a small extent, as he did succeed in gaining and establishing a protectorate over Albania. So, this could be considered a colony, but it was not fully ruled over by Italy at this point. Secondly, was he able to expand Italian influence into the Adriatic Sea and the Mediterranean Sea? I would say he was moderately successful in this area. He attempted to take Corfu from Greece when he deployed 10,000 troops there, but he was paid to leave by Greece for 50 million lire after he was pressured by the League of Nations and Conference of Ambassadors. Meanwhile, he successfully annexed Fiume by signing the Treaty of Rome with Yugoslavia, and he also set up a protectorate over Albania. Thirdly, was he able to further spread fascism? Well, Italy was quite successful in spreading fascism through the acquisition of Fiume in 1924 and setting up a puppet regime in Albania across the Adriatic Sea, and in doing so, he fulfilled the fascist aim of gaining additional territory. However, they failed to permanently take control of Corfu, as Italy had to leave. Fourthly, did Mussolini revive the glory of the Roman Empire? No, at least only to a small extent. Mussolini only reclaimed Fiume and established a protectorate over Albania. With regards to Corfu, he was not able to expand there, but was paid 50 million lire to leave after he was pressured by the League of Nations and Conference of Ambassadors. Moving on to the fifth aim, did he manage to achieve a greater position of leadership in European politics? To a significant extent, yes, he did. He was able to confront and disobey the League of Nations without sanctions and military action when he initially refused to withdraw from Corfu, and then in the end, he did manage to force Greece to accept his ultimatum. He also acquired Fiume, which showed Italy's superiority over Yugoslavia, and he was able to establish a protectorate over Albania. He was also a key figure in both the Locarno Treaty of 1925 and the Kellogg-Briand Pact of 1928. Moreover, he was able to prevent German Anschluss with Austria in 1934, and this protected Italy's borders. Now, did he increase and maintain his popularity in order to sustain his rule? His reputation did indeed increase as the votes for the Fascist Party increased significantly in 1924, allowing him to achieve one-party rule as politicians voted for the Acerbo Law. Meanwhile, his signing of the Locarno Treaties improved his diplomatic reputation and displayed his fascist state as highly influential in European politics, which therefore enhanced his popularity in Italy. To conclude, the motto of Mussolini's fascist party was to make Italy great, respected, and feared. What I want you to think about is, was Italy great? Was Italy respected? And was Italy feared? Thank you for listening to this episode of my podcast. The next episode, to be released very shortly, will be about the changes in Mussolini's foreign policy after 1934. Thank you again for listening, and goodbye. Please click follow or subscribe to be notified when the next episode releases.